Black Americans are facing the same situation that's happening in Africa today. Africa is now at a point where it's going to go to war against NATO and the United States. It's happening right now. It's not over the media because they don't want you to know what's actually taking place. America is going to go to war with Africa, and they're doing it by using a proxy, just like they're doing today against Putin and Russia, just like they're doing in Ukraine. NATO and America are actually providing them all the necessary equipment and skills to fight against Russia, and Russia is fighting NATO and of course the United States through the proxy of Ukraine. The same thing is about to happen in Africa. Are working together with the African countries that align themselves with those nations, the European nations. And they're coming together to go to war against their own brothers. They're using African governments, African military, to go to war against their own brothers who do not align themselves with NATO, who do not align themselves with America. And the issue is about resources, in particular, uranium. Without uranium, you cannot build nuclear weapons. It is the foundation of having nuclear weapons. If you go to war and you start using your nuclear weapons, they have to be replaced. Without having access to the African nations that provide the uranium, that will put them at a very disadvantage over Russia, that controls a larger amount of nuclear weapons than any nation in the world. Here's the problem for African Americans. They're facing something quite similar. What happened? Why did these people get to the point where Africans are no longer wanting to do business with NATO and of course America when it comes to uranium? The reason is the leaders that have existed before them have always given 95% of the resources to NATO and of course to America, leaving Africa with just 5% of their own resources staying in their nation. And the only people that benefit are the presidents who become billionaires, and everyone else starves. And that's what's changing. And same situation happening with African American. Those people in Africa, those nations in Africa that have said enough is enough, has made a huge change. They've gone from becoming an African nation to now developing into an independent African nation, not dependent on those people. Same is happening in America. Black people have been having conversations that they should take over states, acquire states, and we should have everything we want. The only way you receive complete freedom is by being independent. And there's much discussion about freedmen. Well, if you look at your history, you will find that was not ever the case. You can look at the people that were enslaved. Just for example, Harriet Tubman, or take for example, Frederick Douglass. They were freed men. They walked away and became free. They never became independent. That was never the goal, to become independent. They wanted to be free to continue in whatever America has to offer. They were Americans, so they didn't support anything outside of America. The same thing is happening today. People are calling them exactly like those people called themselves back in the 1800s, freed men, but they're not independent. If you're not independent, you don't have control over your own society, your resources, and your goals in life, controlled by other people. That's what's happening here in America. You have to choose. Do you want to be a freedman, or do you want to be an independent nation? The only way that will happen is by establishing a country and you make it an independent nation. And that's what happens with us as African Americans. Are we going to continue to take the path of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman that never attained independence? Or the people who call themselves freedmen, you'll be in the same position what's happening in Africa today, because they will take your resources. That's correct. It's already happening right now. Ever since you've been on this land and you started getting paid for employment, they've always taken away from you 2/3 of your value. You're only getting 1/3 of your true value. And there's no discussions about that. No one is talking about that. they're talking about reparations. That's a temporary one-time payment versus a lifetime. And that's what you fight for when you're independent. You fight for your ongoing existence and all the resources that are due to you. That has nothing to do with what freedmen are doing, what's happening in Africa for African nations that are aligning themselves with the people that take their resources away from them, and they're okay with that. Now when it comes to independence, remember, the only way you will succeed in this world is being independent. Join us as we form the nation of Mahali, the independent nation of our people, now.